Hi, my name is Alyssa Terrio, and I'm a third-year business student at Laurentian University. And for this semester, I had the pleasure of doing my co-op at the Canada Revenue Agency, or the CRA for short. The CRA is a federal agency that essentially regulates tax law. So we receive all your income tax deductions, as in for your provincial and federal income taxes. And we also receive EI and CPP, and we are the ones who disperse it amongst the government to make sure that they're receiving the proper benefits. And we also make sure everyone's complying with tax laws. So we'll do things such as send out letters and do random office audits to make sure everyone's complying. So I am a compliance service officer, or also referred to as an office auditor. And essentially what my responsibilities and duties are to send out letters to taxpayers who submitted a request to have a line adjusted on their income tax. And what this letter will state is all the documentation and supporting evidence that we want in order to verify your claim. And once we receive this information, we will be the ones to process it, review it, make sure you're complying and understanding what we want from you, and essentially making sure you're upholding with what we want from the Income Tax Act, also referred to as the ITA. And what we do from here is once we've processed everything, we will then go to a proposal stage where we'll either accept or deny or partially accept what you submitted to us. So my daily tasks include sending out letters, phoning taxpayers, verifying documentation to reassure that it is a legal documentation and that it wasn't forged, and as well as verifying expenses to make sure that they were properly claimed. This summer, I had a large challenge of starting my position there at the CRA as a compliance service officer, and going in to my position with just basic knowledge of accounting was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done this summer, because doing what I'm doing, it requires extensive knowledge of personal taxes, which I went into having no knowledge of. I'm only going into my third year, so not having taken personal tax yet was probably the hardest thing to learn by myself. My proudest accomplishment this summer is also one of my biggest challenges I overcame. Uh, I'm the type of person who has always hated speaking over the phone, and even answering a door was a large challenge for me. But this summer, you had no choice but to call taxpayers and to manage their emotions from the other end of the phone. So when I started doing over limits halfway through the summer, I kind of left all the phone call ones to the very end. So any over limit, any refund that required me to phone the taxpayer, I left to the very last 2 weeks. And so every day I was coming in and I was making constant phone calls to taxpayers and their representatives. And it was a really reassuring feeling that I had the training beforehand, and then I got the experience of actually thinking back to myself, like, I'm applying what I just learned in the training that they gave me a few weeks ago. And having had the good and the bad experiences with the taxpayers and the representatives, it was really reassuring to have both of them, because you realize that even the worst outcome of that phone call still wasn't as frightening as I originally thought. Upon entering my position this summer, I realized that everyone was coming in at the same time as me. And that was a really reassuring feeling because I had had so many previous experiences where groups were already formed in my workplace, and I really wanted to capitalize on this so that the whole workplace environment could be a really happy setting for everyone, because that was not necessarily the previous experiences I got to endure. So when I went into my first year of business, I had a management class that kind of discussed what were the best ways of going about making a good workplace environment. And this kind of made me think about the job I was doing right before I entered my first year. And I just noticed how many little, not necessarily bribes or reward programs, but just how happy people were by you bringing in simple things like coffee and treats for everyone, and how it just made it a better setting. So when I entered my first day, I realized really quickly that we were all in the same team, we were all about the same level of education, we were all willing to help each other. And I noticed really quickly just like how important it was to bring your best mood and be willing to help. And I think the biggest theory I probably applied was not necessarily just helping people, but doing specific little tasks for them, like bringing in treats or having coffee made for everyone was like such an important asset to the team, because it made you not only willing to help others, but it was something that bonded everyone. So you notice really quickly other people were going home and thinking, you know what? Maybe my coworker would like this. So you notice really quickly that other people started bringing in treats and food, and I think this really helped us in a certain sense because we were able to bond over it. We were able to all consider each other, and this made us so willing to, once again, we were willing to help each other. And I think working together in that sense was probably the most important thing that we need to capitalize on. And I would like to say that that was probably the biggest theory I applied, was just adding certain things to make our workforce, our team, stronger. So my biggest accomplishments this summer, I think, is one, probably my problem solving skills and working independently, and then two, learning to rely on a team. So every day you'd be at your desk, and there's many times where you're faced with a situation where it's like you don't know what to do. So I think it was really great that like I was put in a setting where I worked independently and I had to overcome these situations where I didn't know what to do. But I knew that if it ever came down to it where I really couldn't fix it and I didn't know what to do, I had a whole other team of people that could help me, and they were always willing to help me. So learning to not only develop these skills by myself, but also to learn to ask people for help was probably my biggest accomplishments. And my biggest outcome of all of this was just appreciating what the government does and appreciating personal tax, and wanting to further myself in this type of accounting career. As for my plans for the future, I hope to finish my degree at Laurentian in finance and accounting. And from there, I think the job opportunities and the placements and tasks I'll do will be endless for me, because honestly, I think I'll appreciate either working for an independent company or going to a firm or working for the government or even ending up in a bank would be amazing challenges and responsibilities for me to maybe have one day in the future.